This is CBC Vancouver News.
Months after a Sikh leader was murdered in Surrey, a U.S. indictment alleges multiple Indian assassination plots in North America, including 3 in Canada. Plus,
people should not be evicted into the cold weather.
Calls to halt evictions in the winter as the BC government looks to legislate how cities can respond to encampments. And
it is the most infectious disease that we have.
measles alert. BC disease experts issue a warning about a potential exposure at YVR. Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. Months after pro-Khalistan activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar was gunned down outside of Gurdwara in Surrey, a newly unsealed U.S. indictment alleges numerous Indian assassination plots against Sikh nationalists in North America, including 3 in Canada. Council members of the Gurdwara, where Nijjar was president, say they are not surprised by the bombshell allegations today.
From day one, the Gurdwara released a statement that the Indian government was involved in the assassination of Shaheed Nijjar. This is just sort of confirmation of that. It's providing relief.
Nijjar was shot and killed outside the Surrey Gurdwara Sikh temple in June. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau later alleged the Indian government may have played a role in his killing, triggering a diplomatic rift with that country. The Gurdwara Council is calling on Canadian police to release the name of the people suspected to be involved in his death. These stunning allegations are rippling across the globe. Here's Katie Simpson on the fallout across the border.
Behind all the smiles and pleasantries at a U.S. state dinner.
Cheers.
American authorities were quietly working to thwart an alleged murder-for-hire plot on U.S. soil linked to the Indian government. The details revealed in a 15-page indictment.
It really sets India and the United States on the edge in terms of diplomatic relationships if this is proven true.
It's alleged an unnamed Indian government employee recruited an Indian national named Nikhil Gupta to orchestrate an assassination in New York City. But Gupta tipped off authorities when he unknowingly asked a police informant for assistance and was put in contact with an undercover agent posing as a hitman. He allegedly told them, "We have to finish 4 jobs, the U.S. murder, and after that, 3 in Canada." His target was Gurpatwant Singh Pannu, a dual Canadian-American citizen, a well-known Sikh activist in New York.
I don't fear the death. The physical death I do not worry about, because the issue, the contentious issue, is not the threat to my life. This is the existential threat to the people of Punjab.
Authorities recorded Gupta allegedly handing over thousands of dollars and urged the agents to act, saying, "Finish him, brother, finish him. Don't take too much time." Pleas intensified after the murder of Hardeep Singh Nijjar in British Columbia. Gupta allegedly sent a video of Nijjar's body to the informants before he was eventually arrested. The allegations eerily similar to those made by Canada about Nijjar's killing.
The news coming out of the United States further underscores what we've been talking about from the very beginning, which is that India needs to take this seriously.
All of this is happening as the U.S. is trying to deepen ties with India as a way to counter China's growing influence. Alleged murder-for-hire plots could potentially alter those plans. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
The RCMP has now publicly named the family of a 12-year-old boy who died by suicide last month. Police have determined Carson Cleland's death was in response to online sexual extortion.
12 hours from the predator's first point of contact with Carson to Carson's death. It was 12 hours. That's an hour for each year of Carson's life.
The Prince George boy took his own life on October 12th, and police are still working to identify a suspect. Mounties have received 62 reports of online sextortion in Prince George so far this year. That's up from 56 in 2022. Advocates for unhoused people in the downtown east side are calling for an urgent moratorium on evictions. As Sorab Sandhu reports, they say those living on the streets need shelter and support as colder weather moves in.
November has been unusually sunny this year, but that hasn't meant warmer weather.
Right now, it's about 1 degree. It's really cold out.
Fiona York, an advocate for unhoused people, was at Oppenheimer Park in Vancouver. and she and others at Stop the Sweeps made an impassioned plea to city officials.
3 hours ago, there are already people here going through the eviction of the day.
Stop the Sweeps is calling for a moratorium on what they called winter evictions from now until May 31st and asking for daytime sheltering to be allowed.
People should not be evicted into the cold weather to be outside, outdoors all day, especially people who are seniors, who are elderly, people with health conditions, people who don't have anywhere to go, who have to carry their belongings with them all day.
Premier Eby is calling on municipal leaders to work with the province, all in an effort to get more people under roofs.
People sleeping outside in tents, especially during the winter, is a last resort. There's a constitutionally recognized right of people when their shelter spaces aren't available to be able to set up a tent in a park. That is not what we want. We want people to be inside in a shelter with supports.
York adds that many unhoused individuals say they are struggling daily to hold on to their space.
And I was told that the Rangers had taken my things based on finding drug paraphernalia. They said that I use it for these kind of things. They said they didn't even look inside my tent. They didn't need to.
In a written response to CBC News, the Vancouver Park Board says its rangers have not participated in a decampment, and allegations of violence, impoundments, and belongings being taken away are inaccurate and inconsistent with its practices. Last week, BC Housing Minister Ravi Kahlon promised to push forward Bill 45. It will impact how municipalities respond to homeless encampments. Bill 45 now is at committee stage with fall legislative session set to end Thursday. Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, Vancouver.
It is a challenge to find and keep a family doctor across Canada, especially in smaller towns and cities. Some remote and rural communities offer financial incentives to get MDs to stay. But as Karen Pauls reports, a Manitoba town is now suing a doctor based here in Vancouver, claiming she took the money and left after little more than a year.
The Paw, Manitoba, population 5,600. It's more than 600 kilometers northwest of Winnipeg, and it's where Dr. Andrea Wilson agreed to work for 10 years after graduating from the Family Medicine Residency Program at the University of Manitoba. According to court documents, Wilson signed a $100,000 loan agreement and agreed to work at least 880 clinical hours every year between 2020 and 2030. A social media notice posted by the Northern Health Region welcomed her to the community. But court documents say Wilson left the Paw 16 months later. She moved to Vancouver and was hired by a clinic that posted a notice heralding her arrival. She's what you always hoped family medicine could be and should be. Wilson has since moved to another Vancouver clinic. Meanwhile, the Paw Community Development Corporation demanded repayment of the loan by December 31st, 2022. The defendant has refused and/or neglected and continues to refuse and/or neglect to pay the loan.
But sometimes it doesn't work out, and that's absolutely devastating to a municipality and to a region and to the residents. And ultimately, they're the ones that are truly hurt by this.
Recruiting and retaining family doctors is an ongoing challenge for remote and rural communities. And this is a nightmare, says this municipal leader, who is commenting generally and not on this specific case.
Not only are they out financially for some sort of incentive that's been provided, but also the fact that they've lost this, this caregiver now.
But some physicians groups say doctors and nurses don't have to live in a community full-time to do a great job for their patients. Dr. Nadine Gilroy splits her practice between Norway House Cree Nation and Winnipeg.
You would be hard-pressed to find a physician that wants to abandon their patients. A physician who has worked in a location for more than a few months is going to feel a great responsibility to the patients that they have in their practice and to the people that they look after and the community that they're trying to be part of. And so I don't believe that these decisions are ever made lightly.
Dr. Wilson couldn't be reached for a comment. She has until the beginning of December to file a statement of defense. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The BC Centre for Disease Control has a warning for you over potential measles exposure at Vancouver International Airport. It says a passenger with measles traveled through YVR last Thursday, November 23rd, on 2 Air Canada flights, one from Dubai to Vancouver, then Vancouver to Calgary.
Because we have a highly vaccinated population, we don't have typically that much transmission, but it is the most infectious disease that we have.
Measles symptoms can include a cough, runny nose, and a rash. If you were at YVR last week and think you have measles symptoms, call your doctor if you have one or a local clinic and let them know ahead of time so they can arrange to see you when other patients won't be at risk. Several dozen people had plenty of questions for the board of BC's largest health authority tonight.
We need your help to say, I'm not making this stuff up. And that's the problem we're having.
Members of the Fraser Health Board of Directors were asked about emergency room overcrowding and troubles getting a family doctor, among other challenges. One drug user advocate says it's vital the health authority help people living with drug addiction to keep them from ending up in valuable acute care beds.
We need to have a real sense that you guys are on the side of this, that there is some real sense that we're going to try and bring these overdose deaths down. And for every death, there's all kinds of injuries and misery.
Fraser Health Board Chair Jim Sinclair says it's important to push back against myths about drug users. He also says they have a group dedicated to working with underhoused people. Food banks across BC are preparing for a very busy holiday season, but for one agency, the seasonal rush has become the norm. As Brady Strachan shows us, the Central Okanagan Food Bank has dealt with everything from food insecurity to wildfire emergencies.
Right now I'm shopping for a single household.
It's a busy day for food bank volunteer Dan McFarland.
And they're requesting chicken and no pork. So when we get up to the meat section.
McFarland is building a food hamper to suit this client's individual dietary needs. An assortment of fresh fruits and vegetables, meats and dairy, packaged foods and living essentials, and more go into each hamper, enough to provide a week or more of food security.
I'd like to consider these people as being friends, and when we deliver the food, we can smile and give them a little, keep your chin up and things are going to get better and give that optimism. I find that is one of the most rewarding things.
This year, amid a record influx of people moving to the Okanagan and the general cost of living going up, August hit.
Tonight, from near Kamloops to Kelowna, wildfires drive thousands of BC residents from their homes.
The wildfire emergency displaced tens of thousands of people in the Okanagan. Many were forced to sleep in their vehicles. Executive Director Trevor Moss says staff and volunteers rose to the challenge and built 600 emergency food hampers.
And so what happened was everyone rallied together. They realized that it could have been me or you that was displaced.
The Central Okanagan Food Bank also sent food to other fire-ravaged areas. It's the BC Interior's main food bank hub.
So it was such a collective synergy that came together.
Take berries.
Back on the food hamper line, volunteers are busy meeting the need as we approach the holiday season. The Central Okanagan has seen an increase in requests for hampers by 32% over last year. And Moss says now, more than ever, food banks in BC need public support to deliver on their promise.
And I think that just warms our hearts to be able to really impact children, seniors, adults, refugees, immigrants, because food insecurity touches every age group, no matter how old you are.
For CBC in Kelowna, I'm Brady Strachan.
And this Friday, we would love your help. We are hosting CBC British Columbia's annual Food Bank Day. We'll have a day of special programming here on radio, online, and streaming. And we will have a special 6 p.m. broadcast on Friday as well. Please join us and give what you can. More than 50,000 lights are illuminating a Kamloops home this holiday season, part of an annual Christmas fundraiser led by a local teenager. This year, she's raising money for Kamloops Hospice.
You can see the little lollipops on the roof.
Hi, my name is Cassie McNutt. I'm the founder and organizer of Cassie's Charity Drive with my parents. This is my house, 5215 Dallas Drive, with over 50,000 Christmas lights on it. We started super small, over $1,000 and a few bags of clothes for the homeless, and Every year it has grown so much. We are reaching for super high goals. We have a province-wide 50-50 that goes up to $100,000. So seeing where we started 5 years ago to now is shocking but amazing. This is our wish list donation box. So if you are wanting to donate for wish list items, you can come by and drop off your items in this box and we will collect them. We are continuing on with the bed campaign that we helped support last year, but this year they're doing things a little bit differently. We are fundraising for these things called cuddle beds, which are bigger beds for patients, so they allow patients to have their family members inside the bed with them. So if your child or your spouse or your grandparent is in the hospice, you can now, hopefully after this fundraiser, go right into the bed with them and spend their final days as close as you can. It has not felt like 5 years, I can say that for sure. It's just been an amazing part of my life that has helped me grow so much as a person and helped me support my community.
I don't believe any further ahead in terms of finding out what actually happened that night.
It was a brutal night for Metro Vancouver, and it happened a year ago today. What have we learned from snowmageddon? That's next. Thanks for staying with us on our commercial-free live stream. Doing a bit of a change tonight. Henry Kissinger, the controversial Nobel Peace Prize winner and diplomatic American powerhouse, died today at 100 years old. In 1984, he visited Vancouver, and it got a decidedly mixed reception.
Kissinger arrived for an afternoon news conference in a motorcade escorted by Vancouver's finest. He's here at the invitation of the Arts, Sciences and Technology Centre and the Vancouver Junior League. 1,000 people will pay $150 each to hear him speak tonight, the money going to the two sponsoring groups. And there's also Kissinger's $20,000 fee. 2 weeks ago, Kissinger's visit had City Council all aflutter. Council voted to recommend another speaker be invited to address tonight's dinner, someone who would give an alternative view to Kissinger's recent report on Central America.
This is the architect of disaster in Central America. The arch-architect of disaster. That's what he means to millions of people there.
But last week, Council backed off, deciding to stay out of world affairs. But Kissinger hasn't backed off on Central America.
Maybe in the past we intervened too much, or maybe we intervened too little for certain causes, or in the wrong directions. All of this we are willing to grant, but that is not our current issue. Our current issue is how do we deal with the contemporary situation.
My God, I don't have that much. Thank you very much. You all here for me?
In fact, they were there just for Henry Kissinger, to make sure he got to the hotel safely.
Enjoy the sunshine.
This is why. These protesters weren't pleased at all to see Kissinger come to Vancouver. They're opposed to the policies he's recommended the United States take in Central America. They didn't want Kissinger to speak, so they held what they called a peaceful demonstration. By the end of the evening, the police on duty probably weren't happy either that Kissinger had come to town. To the skirl of a Scottish pipe, the European-born American statesman came to raise money for a Canadian arts and science institution. These people were very glad to see Henry Kissinger. They paid $150 each for their meals. What they heard wasn't new, but it was Henry Kissinger, and he talked about their prime minister.
The last thing that any Soviet leader can do is to come to his colleagues and say, I have just met the most charming Western leader. And for his sake, we have to make a concession which we would otherwise not make.
Kissinger isn't even part of the American government anymore. But for once having been a political superstar, he walked out of the room $20,000 Canadian to the good. Karen Webb, CBC News, Vancouver.
Snow has not been an issue in Metro Vancouver yet, but a year ago tonight, it was ugly. Coined snowmageddon, last year's storm brought bridges and highways to a standstill and stranded some commuters for more than 13 hours. Our Maurice Katz looks back at that night with one of those commuters.
1 year ago today, this happened.
You may have been stuck in it, you may still be in it. Parts of the Lower Mainland in travel chaos tonight after snow, wind, and cold blew across our region. It closed the Alex Fraser Bridge completely for several hours and may have led to a plane going off a taxiway at YVR. Amid it all, people have been stranded for hours.
It's beautiful outside today with not a single snowflake in sight, but the memories of that commute still haunts many.
I think there's one lane that's supposedly open, but I've heard several fire trucks go by, a few ambulances. So I don't know, it's dark, it's wet, it's hard to see. It was pretty scary. I left South Vancouver at about 3:30 and I didn't get home till I think it was 3:45 in the morning. 13 hours, I think it was. Panic, frustration. I was quite cold. I didn't really have anything to eat. I think I had a banana in my car and I had a bottled water. And it was a pretty terrifying experience.
So what exactly went wrong that night? And what have we learned since?
What we saw a year ago today was literally every bridge, with the exception of the Pattullo Bridge, were effectively shut down. We had complete and utter gridlock on our streets. And we had a situation which we were very fortunate that didn't result in anything more catastrophic, in that as the highways and maintenance crews were stuck in traffic, so too were fire trucks and ambulances and other first responders. So we certainly had one heck of a night that night, and it's hard to believe it's been a year ago today.
Councillor Daniel Fontaine was one of two councillors who advocated for a snow summit once the chaos subsided.
The Snow Summit was all about finding out what happened, what should have happened, and for those reports and that information to all be made available to the public. Unfortunately, it got voted down. At this stage, I don't believe any further ahead in terms of finding out what actually happened that night.
In a statement, the province's Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure said that last year was an extraordinary event from which they have taken lessons, and that their maintenance contractors are ready for winter conditions. Thankfully, no snow in the forecast for Metro Vancouver for at least the next couple weeks. But keep your snow boots close, because in BC, well, you just never know. Maurice Katz, CBC News, Vancouver.
Here's a shot from earlier tonight of the moon peeking through some clouds. The fog is set to lift on the south coast, but something else is moving in. Darius Madavi will have your BC-wide weather forecast right after this.
For weeks, Grace and Penny walked this street searching for a small kitten, missing after its mom was killed by a car. He believed the baby cat was living among rocks near a senior's home here in Wesleyville. Someone had already rescued two of its siblings, but no one was sure if this last kitten was still alive, especially as frost began to bite.
I knew deep in my heart that he was going to be here. And I didn't want to give up on him, even if he was gone. I didn't want to give up on him, even if he still had a chance of living.
Then, on one drizzly cold day of his search, he heard a meow.
He stared in my eyes, and then he hopped, and he jumped, and he went under that rock over there, and he crammed himself under. So he had to go call my dad and get him and my friend to come over to see if they can get the kitten out. I was down there and I went up to get cat food. I called my dad, he crammed under the rocks, and I called my dad. So then he came with a friend, and he couldn't get the kitten out because he was crammed and climbing under the rocks. So we got in our car and we went down and we got cat food back at my house. And then we came back up, and a lady from inside the home, she came out and she caught him for us and put him up by the door up by the home.
Grayson named the kitten Smit and brought it home.
He didn't know how to eat. He only knew how to drink from a syringe. So after that, and we let him hang out on my bed, and with me, and he slept with me, and me and my mom had to take shifts going in the night to try to catch him from jumping off the bed. And so yeah, and then, well, we brought him to the SPCA the next day.
Grayson's mom wasn't sure the kitten would survive those weeks in the cold, but she's not surprised by her son's commitment to finding it.
Grayson's had a love for animals since he was small, and he's a pretty determined little boy.
They brought the kitten to the SPCA in Gander, along with a donation, and someone adopted it soon after.
Well, this was Grayson Penny's first cat rescue. He's hoping it won't be his last. He says if any animal, big or small, crosses his path, he'll be sure to try to help out. Troy Turner, CBC News, Wesleyville.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
On December 1st, join us for CBC British Columbia's annual Food Bank Day for a special day of broadcasts. The event is a yearly tradition for many, and we're bringing you a new edition of CBC's Food Bank Day that you can watch and stream live on CBC Gem and cbc.ca/BC. Make the season kind and donate at cbc.ca/foodbankday.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Time for our BC-wide weather forecast with science and climate specialist Darius Madavi, who's going to lead us out of the fog.
Out of the fog. Well, that's where we're going. You can see the ridge of high pressure is retreating further to the east and to the south. And what that means is that we start to see those fog conditions lift, those conditions that really generate that fog, that lack of wind, that cool, really cool nighttime temperatures. As the ridge continues to retreat, we might still see some fog tonight in the inner parts of the south coast, but no fog advisory from Environment Canada means that we should be much better than we have been the last couple days. Now, if we watch this forward, you can see there's that big one, a big system coming through later this weekend, but we have another one coming through first, rolling up along the coast, and it should push a front down to us here on the south coast as well. So expect we might have some showers. We're certain to have some showers on parts of the lower mainland. You may or may not see them depending on when exactly they arrive and how severe they are. But we're expecting really just some light showers until we get into the weekend. Now you can see we have this front coming down, plenty of snow coming for parts of the mountain ranges and rain on other parts of the coast. Freezing levels and snow levels probably at around 500 to 1,000 meters. So expect that we should see some snow on the local mountains as well. You can see that first system will roll in tomorrow, probably in the afternoon, early to late afternoon. Could be a little bit earlier or later. The models aren't entirely sure. And as we continue to see systems roll through, you can see plenty of snow and rain coming, especially as we get later into the weekend, even pushing through for some flurries in the interior as well. Now, if we take a look at our accumulation map, you can see plenty of snow and rain coming all along the coast, especially on these mountain ranges. We're seeing that snow, but even at lower elevations too. And if we zoom into the south coast, this is a lot more rain than we were seeing when we looked at this on the 6th earlier, because a lot of that rain will be coming late on Friday into Saturday. So expect that we should see some heavier rain overnight. Now, if we take a look at temperatures coming up here on the coast as we get into Saturday, but we're not going to see them come up in the interior because that's happening Sunday instead. If we look at our conditions for tomorrow, plenty of snow and or rain coming for parts of the coast, rain for the parts of the south coast especially, but there's just a chance, especially for the South Island and parts of the lower mainland. If we take a look at our Vancouver forecast, again, consistent, just like we were last week, but where there we were consistently cloudy and sunny, here we're consistently rainy, but again, scattered showers, at least until we get into the weekend.
Okay, Darius, thanks very much.
Thanks, Dan.
And that is your late news for Wednesday. Thanks for joining us tonight. For news at any hour, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5:30. Good night.